Good afternoon, Matt Hawkins. We're live. How are you today?
Hey, Shawn, how are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Doing outstanding. Outstanding. Thank you for your time today. It was really cool catching up with you beforehand. And Matt, we call this Lending with Purpose. These are conversations that we have with our clients and friends, introductions to various forms of information and professionals like yourself, resources that we use, like the products that you sell, that we look for, that we never knew existed and wanted to learn more about. So, real quick, start off with a quick story. A lot of times, man, I try to tie in some sort of home ownership deal or tell a story about a scenario and such. With this particular one, I was doing some reading and research. I've been on this health journey over the past year or so. Last time you saw me, I was a bit more swollen, and so I've been able to drop some weight and get healthier and kind of understand the importance of it. And so I was doing some research, and I understand that like people really homeowners have found the importance of living near like parks and trails and greenways and such. And I didn't realize that it actually raises your property value. Like there's an average, what I was reading with the National Association of Realtors at 3.5%. It gives you additional value in your home ownership and as much as 15%. And so, as you know, we just unfortunately had Hurricane Ian happen in Florida. It was devastating for tons of people. But last week, the month of September, I walked. I started walking. I got into this 100-mile challenge. It was a walk-run challenge. And so I walk most of the time. I very few running miles. And so with that rain last week, I couldn't pick up on some of the trails that I've been finding in places that I like to walk. And so, Matt, I go to the University of Maryland near my office, which is fairly close to my house. Matt, I'm walking around. They have an indoor track, pouring raining outside. And I'm just like, you know what? This is the last day of the challenge. I walked 17 miles that day, right? So I walked in the morning. I went in the afternoon and I did like 4 or 5 miles on the track. And then as I was finishing up, I saw this kid, and he's about 6'2", 6'3", sort of curly hair. And I did a double take, and I'm like, I know this kid from somewhere. I just don't know where, but I know him. So I started backpedaling and waiting for him because it was a short track, like 10 laps equals a mile. I started backpedaling, and I waited for him to come. And I said, dude, this is really weird, I know, but can you stop? And I was like, I apologize, but is your mom named Angela? And he looked at me, Matt. He's like, yeah. And and I said, listen again, I know it's very weird and so random, but I grew up with your mother.
Yeah.
And I said, your grandmother, she was my English teacher in high school. And I said, it's like good, really good people. And he's looking at me like, I'm telling you, he's like really weirded out at this point.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, can you do me a quick favor? And I said, can you call your mom? And he's like, he gets his phone out and he starts fumbling and he calls her up. And so we had a pretty cool conversation, quick conversation.
Yeah.
The next thing I know, I traded phone numbers with the young man, and he, we were gonna go out afterwards because he hadn't really left campus too much, and I'm in the area a lot. And so the next thing I know, I'm walking my final laps or whatever, and he's gone. I see him nowhere. So I'm like, man, this young guy, sometimes the kids are pretty awkward, and so like socially. And I'm like, he just ghosted me. Like, I guess I'll never see him again. And the next thing I know, he's like, I'm ready. I live in such and such dorm. And so I was like, well,
yeah, he was going to get dressed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I said, have you eaten? And, we went and had some pizza and got a chance to catch up with him. Really cool young man. Yeah. And so I'm telling
you're making
us.
me feel old right now too.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm telling those stories because Matt, you and I, we know each other. We go way back from childhood. I want to say publicly, I'm very proud of what you've accomplished and what you're doing still and the impact that you're making. And so, with that
Thanks, man.
said, just tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into our conversation for today.
Oh man, well, thanks, Shawn. And if Angela's listening, I have not seen her in so long, but she's one of my favorites. When you and I grew up, you're right, we did grow up together, and went to school together. You were in the same class as my wife, so your crew's a year younger than mine, which is sometimes is a world of difference, but then other times you know everybody. So yeah, and I guess my story, like what I do, I own and founded a brand in 2015 that sells what I call like functional high visibility cycling and running products. So my whole design philosophy and sort of the brand, identity is to make things that are functionally high visibility. So you're seen, cars and drivers see you when you're doing your activity, and that hopefully makes you safer. And I've been doing it now since 2015. It's I'm weirdly still a one-man show. So the brand's grown quite a bit. And yeah, so I kind of I have one of these unique digital, online only brands. And that's what I do. And I joked, I said to Hillary, who's my wife, before, you always go by, the kid from Green. And I'm like, well, I'm the kid from Madison, and people don't realize that went to school with me, but I didn't live in Green. I lived in Madison, but I was allowed to go to school there because my mom taught there. So it's just a fascinating thing if people knew how small the school was that we grew up in. It's wild to stay connected all these years later. So I appreciate you having me on.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And so yeah, your mom, she was primary school teacher. I was second grade, Ms. Hawkins. I
Yeah,
think it was
yeah, she did.
first or second grade. I think it was.
She did kindergarten for a while. Then she did
Okay.
she did second grade. Yeah, and then she taught the combined like first and second grade class 1 year, and that was the year that we had Hillary and that crew in the class with us at the same time, which was kind of wild. So my mom likes to say that she loved Hillary before I did. That's her big tagline.
Everybody loved Hillary, man. What's not to love about Hillary? Hillary's so awesome. So tell us, so I remember a few years ago, I was leaving my office and I saw a bunch of bikers in the parking lot. And this dude had a pair of lime green socks on.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran over there proudly with my chest poked out. I'm like, dude, it's like those red supply socks. He's like, yeah. I was like, dude, I know the owner. And then I sent you a picture and you were like, man, Shawn, that happens all the time. And so tell us, like, Matt, how that all got started. Like, like I see these socks everywhere. I tell people to buy them. I don't even bike. I love the way they look.
Right.
And I wear them. I wear them all the time. And so, like, tell us how that whole thing got started in your life, because I think it's a really the story, sucks kind of for you that it happened, that it happened, but it was such a blessing for you also that it happened.
Yeah. So and I've told this story in many ways or times, but it is still the origin story of the brand. I basically was I'm a cyclist. I've been a cyclist for a long time. And in 2014, I had a job where I was like a general manager of a building supply. And I had to take my son to the dentist in the afternoon. He was like 4. And so before I had to go pick him up, I took the afternoon off. I came home and I got my bike to go for a ride for lunch, which me riding my bike during lunch was not uncommon, but doing it from my house was. So I come home, I get on my bike and I start to ride. And and basically like I was on roads that I'm normally riding on. And it was a Monday. It was like noon. And I was riding on this long kind of straight stretch. It's literally like a 2-mile straight stretch. And um, I didn't hear or see anything, but next thing you know, I was like, I got hit by a pickup truck, and which was doing like 60 miles an hour. And I was doing a little bit over 20, and it was like a bomb went off. I just went flying in the air, uh spun around and landed on my left side when I hit the ground. And I just did not know what was going on. I was in shock. The pickup truck kind of stopped, and because I don't think it saw me. It stopped, and then I was conscious and able to look. I was facing the other way, so I was able to look back, kind of see what was that, what just happened, and saw this truck like peel a wheel and just leave the scene. And I was very fortunate. I had my phone was in my pocket, still in there, wasn't broken. I really couldn't move. I was in a lot of pain, and had definitely had some broken bones. Didn't know what was going on, but was able to call 911. And long story short was, I ended up being in the hospital in a trauma unit for a while, and I had a broken pelvis. So I had a broken pelvis in like 4 places, and my elbow was really busted up. And I was immediately very aware of the fact that I was so blessed to be alive. In this kind of case, if the truck had been an inch this way or I had been an inch that way, it could have been way worse. I could have been run over. I could have been left in the road instead of on the side of the road, and then the next car would have come by and hit me. I mean, it just could have been bad. So I was very, very aware of the fact that I was alive, and I was so thankful. I had a 1-year-old daughter at home and a 4-year-old at the time. And so almost immediately my focus, instead of being like, why me, was like, whoo, like I have got a new lease on life. And so many folks were focused on this hit and run aspect, and justice for this person that hit you. And I immediately, first of all, it was annoying, because I'm sitting there like every single person. Oh man, did they catch this person? And everyone wants to like as if my situation would be any better if somebody, I don't know, went to jail or something. But I realized right away I was going to have to kind of forgive this person. And then also, like, I wanted to keep riding my bike. I knew that once I healed up, that riding my bike was important to me. It was something I loved. I was passionate about. It was no more dangerous after the accident than it was before. It's somewhat dangerous. This could happen to you. And I realized, like, maybe I wasn't seen that day. Maybe this person didn't notice me. And I started doing some research because I was laid up with this broken pelvis for a while. And I realized that there's two things missing from that day. One was I was wearing all black. Black clothes are cool. They're easy to get. My bike was black. I had a blinking red light on the back of it, which is something you do when you ride, and you'd think that would be enough, but maybe it wasn't. So I was wearing all black. And then the other thing is, when you're wearing all black and you're riding your bike from a distance, when you're in a car, you don't really know what that is. You can't tell what it is. So I started to learn about that. And I realized that there's this thing called biomotion mechanics. And what that means is that a human will recognize another human's movement if it is something that their brain identifies as a human movement. So if you're doing something, then you will subconsciously recognize, and there's a lot of subconsciousness when you're driving because it's something that you're just very used to doing. You're used to seeing things that are on the road, but you're not used to seeing threats of, a baby in a stroller or a tractor or a bicycle or anything that may, if you're in this city, maybe this is something you're more used to seeing, but out where we are, you're just not expecting a cyclist. So I realized that I needed to put my focus and my energy towards something that was going to make me riding in the future safer. And I basically am very fortunate here in North Carolina. We have a still vibrant sock manufacturing here, and one of the premier cycling sock companies in the world is based here in North Carolina. So I went and visited them, and I realized I could make my own sock, which was awesome. And I designed something that was, to me and probably to you, very, very trite. It was the Blue Ridge Mountains, and if you're from where we're from, every business within a 50-mile radius is called Blue Ridge something, and this is what it would look like, because this is just a common thing. But in the sock space, I didn't see it. Nobody had really done it yet, but it let me have blocked color. Like if you can see behind me, blocked color is something that's more visible than solid color. And so I had blocked color. I had this ridge, design of the Blue Ridge. And then if you put that on your feet, that's the one thing when you're riding or running that is moving all the time. And that gets you your biomotion. And so, yeah, so I started by since you're a mortgage man, I gotta put this bit out there. I did get a little insurance check for $827, and that was from all of the things that I sort of lost in the accident. Your shirt, your pant, your shorts, your shoes, your helmets, all these things. And with cycling, those things are kind of expensive. They ended up being $827. So I got this check. I took that exact check and bought that many socks. And that was in 2015. And when I got those socks, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I wasn't trying to start a business. I just knew that I was going to maybe do something like Moonlight, and just like make a sock a month and just try to sell them, just because I didn't really love what I was doing as a career at the time. But I thought maybe this is just something I could just be passionate about and fun, And within 2 weeks, I had sold 144 pair. I did a website. I was shipping them myself, and I had no idea that it was gonna. I wouldn't say that's taking off. I just mean that I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't know I was starting a business or a brand, but I took that money, invested, and I just doubled down. And then I bought another round and another round and another round. And I've never put another dollar into Ridge Supply than that first $827, which is probably not a good story for a lender, but I haven't had the necessity for a while for new capital, because I was able to basically, I had a job for a while, and I was able to basically just keep building. I would sell something, I would take the profit, and I would just buy more, and I would buy more, and I would buy more. And basically the way it started initially was, back then, nobody really knew, like if you were a sock brand back in 2015, you would just come out with a design, and then the next design would be something totally different. They didn't match. There was no continuity. And I stumbled on what we call colorways, which is just essentially like, I have that same, I call it a skyline design, and I just changed the colors. And it's been the story that you tell of like running up to somebody and being like, hey, where did you get that? That is what's happening everywhere with this product. And the brand identity has been, and the community around it has been centered around literally people approaching other people and saying, hey, where did you get those? That's been a fascinating thing. That's not something I created or that I manifested or anything, or even like knew was happening, but that is how it's worked. The colors pop, they're visible, they notice. And the reason I know it works is that my whole thing is like, you're creating something to be seen. And these socks are just uniquely visible and recognizable. And unlike a lot of brands, like, when you see um, a Nike athletic sock that has the little black swoosh on it, like a
Yeah,
white sock, that is something that we notice and we know exactly what it is. It's a Nike
that's right.
sock, but
That's
that's
right.
because it's a swoosh. And I don't have a swoosh, and I don't have a text that says what it is. I have the skyline design.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see that on someone's ankle, you know exactly what it is. Or you go ask, where did you get that? So that's kind of how that's been going on now 7 years, which is crazy. But that's the basic start of how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I didn't like trip and fall into it, but I had no idea that I was building something like what it is, now. I just would have never dreamed that it could grow like it has.
Yeah. I recently heard a quote, and the guy was saying, and I'm paraphrasing, that so many of us look for solutions. Like all we're doing is trying to find a solution. We're building all these solutions instead
Yeah.
of trying to find problems, right? And create solutions to solve those problems. And so in your
Yeah.
situation, like we talked about, you took a pretty bad situation and turned it into something very positive. And I know it was all based around gratitude
Yeah.
too as well. So I guess one of the questions I have for you is, we're talking about building this purpose-driven community, and you have a community. Like I've seen through social media and just friends and such, and hearing about certain things that you've done. Like, dude, I've seen you take a bus and gut it out and paint it and rebuild it, and
Mhm.
you got help doing that. The
Yeah.
shop that you're sitting in right now, I've seen pictures of your friends and family and folks like that helping you pull that all together. Like,
Yeah.
what would you say, like, is there a secret sauce behind the community that you built, and how that's beneficial to all of us that are listening?
Um, I mean, the one blessing that I have being a one-man show is that I just have to be me, I'm not spitting a brand identity or a business mantra or whatever that isn't my own. And so that in today's world, I think there's two things that you absolutely have to do to be successful. You have to be original, and you have to repeat that originality. The only way you can do that is to have a genuine message that you believe in. And of course, now I say this now, I'm 7 years in. When I started, Instagram was kind of early, but that's where I got my start. And when you have to post something on Instagram every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, every single day, 7 days a week, and it never stops. What you're doing is you're connecting with your community, you're building it at the same time, and you're messaging your words, how you say it, all of that is important. And I really was scared to death when I started, because I was like, what am I going to do tomorrow? Like, I don't, I'm a dad of 3. I own my own business. It's hard to create content that is unique and interesting and current, like today, for example. Like, I'm not going to get out on my bike and I'm not going to get some beautiful shot of my product in the world. So what am I going to do to create that content? And in order to build community, it is so important that what you're saying is positive, number one, and somehow brightening other people's day. Otherwise they're just going to move on and find something that's either more humorous or more sexy or whatever it is they're looking for. But for what I'm doing, which is I'm creating a product and I'm selling a feeling, if you will, of like I'm not trying to say like I'm brightening the world up, but you know, my product basically is designed to make you feel better when you're going to do your athletic pursuits, you know? And so what I've tried to do is just uplift people, myself, by trying really hard to be that person, you know? Because it's hard. It's hard. It is really hard. Like you're saying with your health journey, you know, like I feel like I'm constantly getting off the horse, falling, getting back up, waiting a little while, then jumping on the horse, find a new goal. I mean, this has been happening to me forever, you know, ever since I stopped swimming, competitively in college after I graduated. Everything I've done has been like, it's not been year round, and I'm constantly getting off this. And I think everyone kind of has this cycle, where you can't always stay on. So what I've tried to do with community wise is just stay consistent. The messaging's positive. And when you do that, the messaging's positive, the comments are positive, the negativity's kept aside. I really try hard to be accepting and open. I realize like I'm a white middle-aged man, so I'm not exactly the poster child for, diversity and inclusion, but I can be that personally. That's who I am personally. So I can be that as a brand. I try to keep politics out of things. I try to keep, really like opinions. I always feel like brands shouldn't have opinions. That doesn't mean you shouldn't take stands or make statements, but I just feel like that's not what people are following Ridge Supply for. They're not coming to Ridge Supply to find out what to think. They're coming to find something that makes their day a little brighter. And that's kind of I probably really over answered that question.
No, that's
where I'm
perfect.
headed with it. Yeah. And then in the end, when you sit back and you look at it, it looks like you constructed some great community. Part of it is the community changes. People come and go. They get excited about it. I have brand ambassadors and stuff that have been with me since the beginning. I have other people that just started, in the last couple months, and others that have moved on. And, I'm not the shiny penny anymore, which is fine. And you have to kind of constantly be there for whoever's coming next, whoever needs to know the brand story or hear it, and without just regurgitating the same thing, because my story changes just like everyone else's. The brand grows. You have new focus, you have new markets, you maybe have new products, new seasons, whatever. And you kind of have to live it honestly online, or like on social media in a way. And I think that's hard to do, honestly. I mean, it really is. I think a lot of people, I'm not saying people front, but like, I think people put something out there that they want themselves to be. That's like they want to emulate it. So that's what they put out. And I've really, the other piece is like, you can't pay attention to other people. That will keep you from being genuine. If you're trying to do what someone else is doing, ultimately it's going to affect who you're being. So I've really tried to not block, but I don't follow peers, competitors, because I don't want to see what they're doing, because it would somehow change what I'm doing. That's not to say I'm not interested. It's that in my game, if I had another sock company and I was like watching what they post and what they say, it would be influencing me no matter what.
Yes.
And so I just try not to see it, because then I think at least what I'm doing then as a result is original, which is back to my
original. That's your number one, original and authentic. And so I guess, pun intended, based on what you do, some of the best advice recently that I've gotten is, Shawn, run your race. Like run your own race. And so that is what I'm hearing you say, like in regards to not following your peers and just remaining authentic and staying in your lane. Question to you as well, another one. I've maybe two more questions, Matt, but like, what was that moment? Maybe you've been asked this before, but what was that moment where you're like, I'm on to something. I got it. Like, I know you said you sold 144 socks. I'm sure you were scared still at that time,
Yeah.
but like,
Oh yeah.
what was that moment where you're like, this is it? Like, I'm all in. Like, I'm making an impact, and I'm gonna press forward.
Yeah, this is a weird thing, because I will say, I still, to this day, I'll look at my wife sometime and I'll be like, can you believe this? Can you believe what we're doing? And that gets old to say that, but it is a real feeling.
Because
It's
you
kind of
call
like,
yourself a sock model, right?
yeah, I mean, I joke, because I would say to people, I would say like, hey, they would say, what do you do? And I'd be like, I sell socks. And I'd be like, well, they'd be like, well, what do you do to make a living? And I'd be like, I sell a lot of socks. I don't know. I mean, you got to sell a lot of socks to make a living. Then I just started calling myself an international sock model, because that just sounds really mysterious. And it's actually true, because I am the model of all the socks. I mean, I take my own pictures. I have like a little, here it is. I got a little, little button for the camera, so I
Yeah.
set the stuff up. I take it all myself. Now, to answer your question, and I've never really told this story before, and I doubt he'll listen, so I'll tell it. But when I started the business, I had a full-time job. I worked a lot, and I worked about 45 minutes away from here. I'd been there 10 years, and I was running a building supply. I was the manager. The owner was there on site, and he didn't know that this was going on. And eventually, Rich Supply was growing in a way, like, pretty fast, considering, when you start from nothing. It certainly wasn't at a point where it could support me, or definitely the family, or anything like that. But I was going home at night, and I was posting on Instagram, and I was shipping things at night, and then I'd come to work and I'd try to like avoid it. I wasn't looking at my phone, and I was doing my regular job, and it wasn't a conflict of interest or anything. But about 6 months in to doing Rich Supply, I just, on a Friday afternoon, the owner of the company comes to me, and I had the big office in the corner or whatever. He comes in and shuts the door like 5 minutes before we're going to close. And he says, I'm miserable, and you're making me miserable. And on Monday, you need to tell me what it is you're going to do, because you're not going to have this job anymore. And I was like, what? And I couldn't, first of all, it's not that I couldn't believe it, but I was like, oh, okay. That's weird. And I went home, and I talked to my wife, and I was panicking, because I made good money. I had a good job. Rich Supply was not ready to support me alone. And for the first time, I've had a lot of crazy jobs and stuff, but it was the first time I was like, oh, we're not going to be able to pay our bills. Wife had a good job too. We really weren't in that bad of a shape, but basically I was getting kicked out of the nest, and I went back. Long story short, I found a gig that I could do at home that was like not part-time, but like it was online. I was helping with some customer support in the bike space, was able to do that. And I went back in that next week, told the owner, I was like, I think our relationship's broken. I'm prepared for today to be my last day. And I walked out, which was crazy. I mean, I had like 50 employees, and I just like left one day, which was wild. Anyway, long story short, so this was like early 2016, I didn't know that this was going to work, or that it was going to grow. And by the time 2018 came along, it was doing it, and I knew then that I was onto something, because all of the competitors that I had when I started were no longer in the space. They had basically, for one reason or another, not because of me, but just, it's a hard market. It is a hard market to carve out. It's a hard market to stay. You always need customers. That's not easy to do. And yeah, so I looked around, and I was like, I was the guy, you know, and I couldn't believe it. And it wasn't because I had done something special. It wasn't because, but I found, and this is the one thing that I would tell anybody. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, like, how did you do it? What, you know, how can I do this? What would you suggest? I was obsessed, and there is no other word. I was obsessed with what I was doing. I worked every moment that I could for years. I still do. And it's because the thing that I built, it's me. This brand is me. Everything about it is me. And because I had no one else, for the first time, I was a manager of people. You know, I'd been a manager of people. I'd been a waiter. I had done all sorts of stuff. I'd swept floors, you know, like I'd done all of it. To finally be the only person that was responsible when something was wrong, I looked in the mirror, I fixed it. If I didn't want to do it, I didn't do it. That was cool, but like it also made it so it was me. Every interaction, every customer, every time Shawn placed an order and I got to sign the order, I was like, I saw that Shawn signed the order and I sent Shawn some socks, you know. That was amazing to see. And yeah, so I kind of woke up that next day after I left, I was scared to death. And I felt this huge burden lifted because I was, for the first time ever, I was on my own, you know. I mean, I'd had a job since I was 14, you know, even all through college, everything. Like, that's all I knew. My family didn't have a whole lot of money. You know, we grew up in an area where nobody really did. And I had to work. And it's not a sob story. It's just like, this was the first time I was like, oh crap, I don't have a boss, you know, I'm the boss. And at first that seemed like I was like a fraud, you know? But then you just start to own it. And now it's like, it's still crazy, but yeah, that was the moment where it's the best thing that ever happened to me in my business world to get kicked out of that nest. I would have stayed there way too long, getting that good paycheck and the benefits and all that stuff, you know? But once you do it on your own and I didn't set out to like have the American dream or whatever, you know, but you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I got the best job in the world for me. I've got it, you know? And I'm in charge of my own destiny, you know, like that's crazy powerful. It's scary. It's scary every day, all day, but it's powerful. So, and I mean, kudos to you too. I love that. I love to talk to people who also have that they're dealing with the same anxiety that I deal with on a regular basis, which is like the motivational fuel that you deal with. But it's like, I mean, there's many a day where my wife will say like something wrong. And I'm like, no, nothing's wrong. You know, I'm just worried about money. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that's what you do. You have to, it's not all roses and posting on Instagram. You know, you still got to pay the bills. So yeah.
Yeah. I look at
I'm
it as
long-winded, bro. I'm sorry.
No, this is great. This is what it's supposed to be. Like I said, conversations with clients and friends, man. Like I'm thinking and I'm looking at both of us right now. Matt, how cool is it that we get to wear our brand? Like you got
Yeah.
like you probably, do you wear your socks like every single day? Or like I try my best to wear something that represents our brand every day.
Yeah. I do. I do. I love it. I live at the beach. So like a lot of times I don't have to wear socks. You know what I mean? It's a lot of slides and flip flops and stuff like that. And people will catch me like in the grocery store, be like, bro, where are your socks at? You know? And I'm like, man, I can't always do it, but I do wear the t-shirts a lot. I'm not quite Steve Jobs yet, but I am slowly working my like one uniform, you know, that I could do every day. I'm getting there. I'm dialing it in. But yeah, the shirt is normally, and I love these things. I make them so they're, like you said, you know, it's branding, but it also is like, I sell it because it's the kind of shirt I want to wear. You know, it's it's exactly the way I want it to fit and feel. And yeah, and I like that. I like having that control over things. I know when you're selling things like I am, when you're selling like a product, like something you can produce, I really try to make sure I'm selling something that I love. Not just oh, well, this shirt was a little cheaper and I could sell it and make more profit. I think those are bad decisions, and everybody makes them. But I hopefully make things and sell things that always I like. Because I have made things in the past and I'm kind of like, I don't really like that sock. And I realize like not every sock is for me, which is fine. But there's people out there and they need something fun, or they need something brown, even though I won't wear it, like, so you gotta sometimes give it up. But
I got you. I thought you were gonna make me a brand ambassador when I sent you a picture of me sitting courtside at the New Jersey Nets with my
I love
legs
it.
crossed with some what did I forget the colorway that I had on.
Well, I love it. And you, just real quick, you mentioned that brand ambassador. I do this unique thing where every July I have open applications for ambassadorships. And a lot of people in my space, in the cycling space, they have ambassadors, and their ambassadors are all people who are like what I would call bike famous. They're just really good at it. Like, that's a normal thing for a brand, is to like basically like align themselves with people who have a status because of their physical ability. And what I do is I take open applications and I add 72 people every year, and they stay members for life. And so now, talking about building community, now I have this huge group of ambassadors that all have a shared piece of the brand and vision, and they have kind of access that is exclusive. We make products for them that are unique. They have their own little store and stuff. But when I set out to do that, nobody was doing that back then. And I did it, and I was kind of like, I didn't know if it was going to work, but it's been cool because there's this whole group that is hundreds and hundreds of people now that are all ambassadors. And you're more than welcome to apply in July, Shawn. I review them all and I select them. I got a feeling that you might have an in if you're interested in
Okay,
it.
I got it. Relationships,
Yeah.
everybody listen to that. Relationships are important.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to apply. No,
Good.
I'm giving you a hard time, Matt. This was really amazing, man. You dropped some great gems on everybody that's listening. I wrote a ton of notes. So before I get into the last couple of things, we'll keep this one short. Say, for instance, you're getting ready to move, right? Yep. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon for you. It seems like you're rooted in the community, in the area. You guys love where you're living, but you're going to move. There's no place for you to ride your bike. There's none of that. Do you want to be in that place?
No.
It's important for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. And so I just wanted to put that out there. So for like all the bike lovers that are friends and clients of mine, it wasn't until, like I said, Matt, that I started to go on this health journey, because the house that we live in now is on a cul-de-sac, and it's a private road.
Yeah.
And so the only place I can really walk now is up and down the cul-de-sac, but that's only like I think it's 1/10 of a mile.
Yeah.
So it's really boring walking up and down.
Sure. Yeah.
And so there's a main road that goes in front, and sometimes it can get a little busy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so last week, my sister-in-law was like, well, if you're going to be walking, like, I'm going to get you one of those reflective vests or whatever, right, so that you can wear them. And it dawned on me, like, Shawn, and my wife would probably say, I told you so. Shawn, you didn't put a lot of thought into this, like, and where you were living, because I wasn't going through the health journey at that time. I just wanted a decent place to live. And so now I'm thinking about, if we were to ever move again, it has to be a place that I could walk, or I could run, I could bike, whatever it might be, to get some exercise. So I wanted to get your take on that.
It is such an underestimated piece of where you are. And I realize a lot of people end up places because of jobs or opportunities or family or whatever. And they don't really, that's not high on their list. For example, for me, we live at the coast and it's flat. I mean, flat. And you don't realize that, like where we're from, or even where you live, there's hills, there's turns, there's mountains, there's something there. But where we are, it is flat. But we have this national forest that's right here, and it's huge. We have 200 miles of gravel roads in there. And when I first got here, it was like it's a little scary. You know, it's like, where does that road go? Just like a dirt road, it just goes into the forest and you don't know where it goes. So I started riding in there, and I come to find out that it's, you know, it's just safe. It's just a great place to be. You can be 15 or 20 miles from anything, which is crazy. You can't be that anywhere on the East Coast. It's hard to find. But here we just happen to have this giant forest. And so in 2015 or whatever, no, 2018, we started a gravel race here. And in March, I have a gravel race that, you know, we've got 800 people that come here from all over the mid-Atlantic and come down and do this race down here. And what is weird is, like, when I did that, this place was not a destination to come ride your bike. Everyone was kind of like, what? You know, but now people realize, like, I can come to the beach. I can rent a beach house, and then I can go gravel ride till my heart's content, like 5 miles away. That's crazy. Well, sometimes it's like you said, maybe your cul-de-sac seems restrictive, but maybe there's something right outside of it that you don't even notice is there yet, because, like you said, you're not looking for it yet. But I would say, like, necessity is the mother of invention sometimes, you know, like, you got to find a place to walk, and it's got to be longer than 1/10 of a mile. Like, where are you going to go? Where, you know, are you going to get in your car and go somewhere, or can you go the other way? Is there another neighborhood close? I don't know. But cyclists deal with this all the time. We have to have a safe way to ride our bike from point A to point B. And most everybody has some sort of huge impediment to that, is some sort of traffic situation where bikes really are not welcome, or it's just not safe. Yeah. The other thing we did here recently, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but we started a bicycle advocacy group, where we basically have 8 folks that are on a board, and we have started a nonprofit, and we are doing the behind the scenes work here locally to help impact it's called Coastal Bike Impact. And we're basically dealing with the local governments, counties, police, sheriff, and the state DOT to try to help impact positive bicycle and pedestrian, you know, solutions long term. Some of that stuff takes 25, 40 years to, like, happen. So you have to really play the long game. But once we got involved, this is something that kind of started during COVID. I start to look at things differently. I realize, like, maybe you can restripe a road, or maybe when they're going to do a bridge, they're going to have a bridge project. All you got to do is get the right person, you know, in front of them early enough, and they can start adding a bike component to the bridge that they're already building. And so just those kind of things sometimes are huge. And that's like unseen work. It's not profitable in any way. But it's part of the building the community. The bike community here is interesting. You know, we have 40,000 people a week in the summer come here from wherever to vacation, and they're always bringing bikes. And it's because we have this huge bike path on the island that they did about 10 years ago. It's amazing how it's like 13 miles and it's right on the beach. To have something like that here, and you just know, like, more bike infrastructure anywhere, bike and pedestrian infrastructure anywhere, or walking trails or whatever, is invaluable. And yeah, so we're just pushing for that here, in connection with some other stuff as well, some big greenway projects and stuff that kind of cover the whole East Coast. But that's something we're working on every day.
That's cool.
Again, too long of an answer. Man.
No, I'm enjoying. I got time. I have time.
My wife's gonna hear this and be like, "Gosh, you're droning on again."
No, I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying the conversation. How can we help you? Number one, what do you need? And then number two, how do we connect with Ridge Supply?
How can you help me? I mean, you're already doing it. I mean, if you're interested in something that socks and underwear are the kind of thing that just afterthought. People think they're throwaway items, and they're not. If you don't have good versions of either, I just suggest that you find some, because there's something that you basically use every day. And our socks they're not just bright. They literally are the best socks in the entire world. And I mean that with all sincerity. They're functionally perfect. They work. They stay up. They don't pill. They last. I have some socks from this, basically from this same, machine that makes mine. I have some socks that are 15 years old and that are still perfect. And you can't say that about anything. They just work. It's not a great business model because it's not a throwaway product, but a lot of people buy a bunch of them. And, the big thing with Ridge Supply is like you start bringing them into your sock drawer. Eventually it's going to take over your sock drawer and you're only going to have Ridge Supply in there. And that's okay. So yeah, I mean, if you run, if you walk, if you wear boots, if you're on your feet all day, these socks are great for business attire, church, walking, running, you name it. If you can't see them, that's okay. We sell this sock called the Soul Sock, and it's got a padded footbed, and it is just a game changer if you wear like any kind of regular shoe. A running shoe or just a business shoe. It's like a foot cloud. It's awesome. So I highly recommend that. Where can you find us? We're on Instagram, at Ridge Supply, Facebook at Ridge Supply, and we're ridgesupply.com. That's the place to get our socks. You can order them, and we ship them out. I ship them all out from here in North Carolina. All our stuff's made here in North Carolina. I try not to tout it, but it's true. Very sustainable. We use recycled poly. When we use poly, we use wool here from the U.S. The things are made in North Carolina and shipped out of North Carolina. We use the Postal Service to ship things I ship them in a biodegradable bag. There's very limited packaging, all these kind of things. And all that to be said, I just try to do the right thing on it. I really don't promote that because I just feel like that's not the reason to buy the product. I feel like that's like the benefit, because we're shipping a lot of stuff and sending a lot of things out. I don't want to send a lot of waste, so, but yeah, that's how it works. If you purchase from us and you're going to get a signed order from me, and it's going to go out within 24 hours, and you'll have it within basically 2 days. So, we're currently beating Amazon at their own game, which is crazy because their times have gone out a little bit for those of us that aren't in a city. So I didn't just say that out loud, but I think it's true.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome. I can vouch for it. Like I get your socks pretty quickly when I get them. I always get the mystery pack now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so last question.
Uh-huh.
Matt, you get one person, one question. Who would it be? What would you ask? One person, one question. Who would it be? What would you ask?
Man, I think the one person I'd like to ask a question to is I'd probably like to ask a question to the person that hit me and just ask, can you see me now? I think maybe that's the question I'd ask. Not in an aggressive way, but I don't know if they saw me or not. But I think what we're doing now is visually impactful, and that, like you said, it seems like it's a horrible thing. I think it's every cyclist's worst fear. I just happen to live it out. A lot of people have lived it out. Some people that are less fortunate that don't make it. But on the other side of that, it can't not be something that holds you back. And I would look that person in the eye without any malice and just ask if they could see me now.
That's great. That's great. So everybody, this has been an awesome, and Matt, I'll just ask you to hang on for a couple more minutes with me. But awesome conversation. I appreciate your time today, Matt. As I always say, it would be such a shame for me to know people like Matt and not share them with the community. So again, thank you for that. Everybody still remain as safe and as healthy as you possibly can. And I know we took a little bit of a break, but we're back in full swing, have episodes coming every week. And, we'll see everybody next week at 2:00. And Matt, thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Shawn. Appreciate it, man. Tell Angela I said hello.
I will. Hang tight. Let me close it out. Here we go.